That's exactly right, Hadley. An exodus of companies moving out of Russia, and at the same time, that convoy inching closer towards Kyiv. So the crisis in Ukraine certainly taking centre stage in President Biden's address, but rising inflation, soaring energy costs, pandemic concerns, of course, his stalled domestic agenda, and the fall of Afghanistan all marring the president's first year. And on the issue of the economy, the president also spoke about the recovery. He also attempted to reset the narrative, if you will, on inflation, certainly acknowledging frustrations about rising prices, which is a major pain point for Team Biden ahead of the midterms. He outlined some steps that the administration can take now to ease the pain for households. Listen in.
One way to fight inflation is to drive down wages and make Americans poorer. I think I have a better idea to fight inflation. Lower your costs, not your wages. Folks, that means make more cars and semiconductors in America, more infrastructure and innovation in America, more goods moving faster and cheaper in America, more jobs where you can earn a good living in America. Instead of relying on foreign supply chains, let's make it in America.
And of course, the administration can only go so far when it comes to addressing inflation. It's primarily job of the Federal Reserve, as you know. And the soaring cost of oil is exacerbating that inflation challenge. We had more insight as well on how the administration is thinking about the energy dynamic today. President Biden also announcing another coordinated release of oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, basically seeking to cool markets on edge after the invasion of Ukraine. Listen to this.
Tonight, I can announce the United States has worked with 30 other countries to release 60 million barrels of oil from reserves around the world. America will lead that effort, releasing 30 million barrels of our own strategic petroleum reserve. And we stand ready to do more if necessary, united with our allies.
President Biden there. Hadley, what's most fascinating is, though, despite the fact that the administration announced that release, we still see oil prices soaring, Brent above 110 and 10 US a barrel, and of course, energy geopolitics now in full swing.
Absolutely, Dan. I mean, the last time that the administration did this, decided to go to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, we saw what was essentially a blip in the oil price. It didn't actually matter to the price over the long term, did it? So one question is why they're going back to something that in the past actually didn't work at all. And another question is, of course, why they're not attempting to engage more with their OPEC allies, because at the end of the day, this is a decision by OPEC that we saw in those joint technical meetings over the last 24 hours. They've essentially said we're going to stick to our production targets. We're not going to make any changes. So one would think that the Biden administration would be talking to them. And of course, the overarching narrative at this point is whether or not the West can deter Vladimir Putin. They can put a stop to what's happening in Ukraine. That country now entering its 7th day of conflict as Russian forces encircle the capital city. And we're talking about a massive military buildup. We've been talking about that for the last 48 hours. We're talking about a convoy that was something like 40 miles long as of yesterday. And then there's a bigger question, of course. They are the #1 oil producer in the world. This is going to be a massive hit to supplies if, in fact, these nations finally decide potentially that they're going to sanction the energy sector. And one wonders if that's actually on the table.